I'm reading a recent editorial from the Los Angeles Daily News. The authors recognize that children can be difficult, and they state, optimistically, that such problems can be overcome by adults responding with firm instructions and consequences. Good so far. But then they ask, what if those leadership tools are taken away from the adults? And they say, everybody loses, and then we have chaos. So they state that the problems in schools can be overcome with adults who have firm instructions and consequences, and without those, everybody loses, chaos, which is exactly what is happening in California, in the place where this newspaper is, and in many states across the country, if not most. The editors note that in California's public schools, well-meaning adults have foolishly made it impossible to impose consequences on children or parents for bad behavior because they want to eliminate, the schools do, any hint of being unkind. Well, now unkindness has come to be defined as anything other than ice cream. The schools want to eliminate any hint of being unkind to children or even limiting their choices. Keep in mind that children's brains are just still forming. They will make bad choices because they haven't gathered enough information or maturity to make good ones. But the schools want to just give children free rein to express themselves. That's called chaos. And they're limiting anybody who would limit a child's choices for fear of hurting a child's feelings or offending their parents. And so the schools have detached themselves from their very purpose of existence, which is to teach children how to successfully navigate the roads of life. Let me say it another way. The schools have been given the task of teaching our children how to be human beings. We parents have mostly abandoned that, so we've given the schools the responsibility to do that, and then we've told them that they can't do anything to modify our children's behavior. So we're just sending our children to pretty much, like a holding pen, like cattle, to do whatever they want. This approach has allowed students more and more to do pretty much whatever they want. Kids are even allowed to be violent with each other without fear of consequences. Can you imagine this? The reasoning of lawmakers and school administrators is insane, but I mean really insane, not odd, insane. But they claim that they're allowing children to learn from their own choices. I wonder what would happen if we applied this to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So there will be no red lights, no stop signs, no anything. We'll just let people learn from their choices as they just, randomly collide with each other on the road. But this is what is happening in schools. Children are being allowed to randomly collide with each other, and then the schools say they will learn from their choices. So schools are abrogating, giving up their responsibility to teach our children, and they're doing that because they say we're going to allow children to teach themselves, to learn from their own choices. We're not going to do our job to teach them. We'll let them teach themselves. So they're not prevented from doing anything that occurs to their developing, immature minds. It's a little mind-boggling. Earlier I said that the school's reasoning was insane. I wasn't kidding. If a child is violent or disruptive, teachers are not allowed to send these defiant children home. Even though that consequence has been a successful approach in the past, like forever. If you behave like an animal, you can go home and your parents can deal with you. Children cannot be suspended either, all of which leaves teachers helpless to modify horrible and dangerous behavior. This would be exactly like, not kind of, exactly like allowing adult criminals to learn from their own choices, because the behavior of these children in school is criminal if it's done by an adult. So it'd be like allowing adult criminals to learn from their own choices as they continue to violate the law, hurt people, kill people without fear of arrest or incarceration. And that's actually happening in many places too with adults. We are training children to become criminals. I really wish I was exaggerating. I'm not a fear monger. I don't sell fear. But that's what we're training our children to become. Or at the very least, to become useless to themselves and others. One administrator says that, quote, biting, hitting, and kicking have become more frequent, along with throwing blocks and even chairs across the room. And all this in kids as young as 3, end quote. This administrator cannot call a parent to take their ill-behaved child home early from school, and there are not nearly enough teachers to handle the behavior problems. So what's the bottom line? Schools are becoming increasingly disrupted and unsafe, and parents are officially relieved from all responsibility for their children, whether the parents want the relief or not. Regrettably, many parents do. They want to just give up the teaching of their children to the schools. This article was written about California public schools, but we have seen many times before that as California goes, so follows the rest of the country, like legalizing marijuana, for example, or the government funding everything in the state, or unrestrained illegal immigration, or heavy taxation, and now the insane trend for government to take over the responsibilities that belong to parents. At least 28 other states, that's as of today, have policies that stop or severely limit the ability to expel students at all grade levels. So what do the kids learn? I can do whatever I want. The consequences are going to be minimally annoying. The concern of these permissive states, the reason that they prevent children from being sent home, is that removing problem children could harm their education and increase the future risk of joblessness in prison. Well, yes, it's true that if you send a child home, those risks increase. But this concern for the defiant children ignores the children who are harmed by the violence and disruption of these unrestrained wild kids. The editorial concludes that this system is broken. There has to be some recourse for teachers and administrators in order to protect the children who are getting hit by these flying blocks and chairs, end quote. I'm Greg Baer, and I assure you that there is recourse, there is a solution to school dysfunction, to educational deficiencies, to children behaving like wild dogs. And the solution is, wait for it, parents. Us, again. How could this be a surprise? These troubled children were brought into the world by their parents, who then failed to give them the unconditional love, the love without disappointment or anger, that breathes life into the soul of a child. This is the love that creates a safe space for calm and direct teaching. In their defense, these parents didn't know how to love their kids. But children don't care about the intent or ignorance of their parents. Children only know whether they feel loved or they don't. It's yes or no. And if they don't, they're starving for emotional food and air. They're drowning, they're in pain, and then they lash out with the behaviors that are unacceptable and harmful to the people around them, and harmful to the kid. Rules and laws do not change the behavior of children for long, not just rules and laws. And it is not the job of teachers or administrators alone to help these kids. I restate categorically that the misbehavior of children is a reaction to their pain of not feeling unconditionally loved. So it is only the unconditional love of parents that will heal children and eliminate bad behaviors. It's only you who can do this. But parents are as lost as their kids. They don't know how to love their children. You can change that. You can learn how to find unconditional love for yourself, and then you can share it with your kids. You can teach them how to feel loved. You can teach them how to be loving and how to be responsible, and such children become happy. Guaranteed. I'll write it, sign it, and send it to you. And these kids stop behaving badly. As surely as dawn eliminates the darkness of night. Go to realloveparents.com and learn how to begin this miracle of healing and change.